Welcome, Kate.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to Bournemouth. Or
Thank
should I say
you.
welcome back to Bournemouth?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
used to work here. Yeah.
yeah. So how long was that?
Oh, when I
How
was
long ago?
18, about 1992, I think I worked here in Our Price Records on the High Street.
Yeah. We're just chatting backstage and we realized there was a little local connection there.
Yeah. My family's from the New Forest, so that's why.
Great. So, Sylvia, it was such a wonderful show. I saw Sylvia at the Old Vic the other day. And it's just such an inspiring show. Highly recommend it to everyone that hasn't seen it. How does it feel to have a new show?
I don't know. It's such a surreal thing. I love writing shows. I like rehearsing shows. Don't really like it when they're open. It's very stressful. And I'd rather sort of pull the duvet over my head and not deal with it, really, if I'm honest. It's just too much stress. It's like when you're in rehearsals, it's really safe because no one's judging it. No one's telling you what they think, really. You're just doing your best and trying to have good ideas. And then as soon as it's on stage, you just get these waves of opinion every day and waves of problems that you have to sort out. Human problems, a lot with illness and injury and just the logistics of running shows post-COVID, which is a very different environment. And it takes a lot of the joy out of it, I would say. But I still like making them. I just don't like it when they're open. Is that bad? I don't know.
It's been quite a long creative process as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, this show's been 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And it hasn't been constant for 6 years because I've made other work along the way and sort of left Sylvia for 6 months and gone and done something else and then come back to it. But we've been working on it repeatedly over a 6-year period. So yeah, it's long. Yeah. I have more grey hairs because of Sylvia than any other show, I would say.
Should we go back to 6 years ago, the early days of Sylvia? Tell us about, how it all started.
So I think in 2015, I was asked to be an associate artist at the Old Vic Theatre by Matthew Warchus. And ideally, because the Old Vic Theatre actually has a massive history of dance, the Lillian Bayliss used to be based at the Old Vic Theatre, and people don't associate the Old Vic with dance; they associate it more with plays, I think. And so when Matthew took over, he wanted to reintroduce dance into the building. So he invited Drew McConey's company and ZooNation into the building, and he asked me to pitch a couple of ideas, and I did. And we were going to make this dance piece, but then I got pregnant, and I was going to have a baby, and I was like, I need at least a year. And during that time, I'd started researching something about the suffragettes, and I mentioned it to him, and he said he'd rather have that. And it was meant to be a dance piece, but all of ZooNation's dance pieces, we write our own music. But the sort of hybrid, what it is sort of, it feels like a dance piece with a live band and singers, and often a narrator. But the sort of ratio is sort of maybe 70% it's a dance show, and 30% there's a bit of acting and singing. And then as I was writing Sylvia, I could feel that the ratio was tipping further and further into it being an actual musical, which I've never written before and have no qualification to write whatsoever. And Sylvia is my mother's name, which I think is why I was drawn to Sylvia Pankhurst as opposed to Emmeline Pankhurst or Christabel Pankhurst. I was really interested in her story. So we did it in 2018, and then the Old Vic were lovely and said, this show's got potential, keep working on it. And they funded lots of workshops and further development all the way through to now. And we've just done something like a 8, 9, 10, maybe 12-week rehearsal period, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's been open for a couple of weeks.
Can you tell us a little bit about the current cast? Because obviously you've got your own company, ZooNation, and the cast this time is a mix of dancers you've worked with in the past and some new actors. And
worked in the past. There's one young man who's at 19 and he's come through our youth company. Who's in it. There's another couple who've done shows like Some Like a Hip Hop and Into the Hoods. Yeah. There's quite a rare breed of person who can dance like they do in ZooNation, but sing like Beverly Knights and also MC. And so it's a lot of sort of actors, singers who have dance ability, working with some of our dancers and trying to sort of cross-blend everyone's skills to create a company that looks like they're a very, very strong dance company, but I've simplified a lot of the movement to try and make it look effective and keep everyone in a zone where they feel really confident and comfortable. But they're great. They've all been game to do it. So,
I mean, the choreography is spectacular, of course, as you would expect from a Kate's show. And, you know, I find out when I watch the group choreography, you know, everyone seemed like they were at home with dancing, and the physicality and the characters all came through in.
I'm going to tell them that. They'll be pleased.
They're wonderful. They're really, really wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work in the studio as a choreographer? Do you start with sort of characters, or do you start with movement, or?
I always do, whether I'm choreographing myself or whether I'm working with an associate choreographer or an assistant choreographer, depending on every show, we've had a different model. I always start by reducing the story to photographs and laying out all the story beats visually first before we do any steps. As soon as you start doing steps, you get carried away with the steps. And the steps take over the point. And the point has to be, if you're doing a narrative, that the story has some clarity. So we always do the beats of the story first. And so say even in a 3-minute number, we'd work out obviously a beginning, middle and an end. And then we'd work out lots of points in between that, make sure that every bit of pivotal storytelling drama is visually there. And with Sylvia, it's more complex as well because it's script based and everyone's speaking. But we always do that first before we put in, so that they can actually block through like a whole act, pretty much. And then they can walk through the act, knowing what they're singing, knowing what they're saying, knowing where they should stand, and knowing that at this point, they're going to do 12 counts of beats of choreography. They don't know what those beats are. But they know to stand there for 12, and they know to move stage right, and then they know they're in a single file line, and they know they're in a diagonal line. And then you do all of that first, and you can watch the flow of the movements. And then the steps for me is like the icing on the cake. And then sometimes when you put steps on, it makes you change some of those formations or some of those decisions. But we always do it that way around.
So it's almost like you sketch out a blueprint of how the whole show is before.
Yeah.
Nice.
First, physically, before we colour it in. And to be fair, on Sylvia, a lot of the cast found that really, really challenging because I'm physical and visual based, whereas a lot of them have come from the background of being actors in musical theatre who are text based. So they want to dissect text and understand every intention and every meaning behind every word. We never really got time to do that, if I'm honest. I spent so much time on the physical that they kind of had to learn where the text was taking them. And then I could gradually feed in some ideas, but it was all very physical based.
Yeah. So I believe you wrote the lyrics for the songs as well.
I tried, yes.
How was that for you?
Well, I quite enjoyed it.
Okay, you can stand in your own right, for sure. I think let's go back to the visuals. You talked about visuals a little bit. And what struck me the most about the visuals was the colors that was in the show. There's a lot of black and white and then sort of red seeping through.
Yeah.
Is that the color scheme intention that you...
I'm a big believer in recycling ideas. And if you really like an idea, you like something and it's yours, use it again if you want to. But so when the first show we ever made was Into the Hoods. And the premise of the look for Into the Hoods was black and white. And they wore black tracksuits with a white stripe down the side, and everyone in the cast had exactly the same tracksuit. And then every character had a colour, and they would put that colour on top of what they were wearing so that they could stand out as the character or blend into the ensemble. And that was like 2006, and that show went into the West End. It was the first thing we ever made. And I loved that idea, and I liked the simplicity of it, and it's cheap because you're not trying to do 1,000 costume changes, right? And ZooNation can't compete with that. We're not produced by Cameron Mackintosh. We don't have huge budgets. It's just, so I'm always looking for cheap ways to make stuff and simple ways to make stuff. So the whole set of Sylvia is a set of steps and a few blocks that we move around. And there's nothing else. There's no revolve, there's a little bit of flying, but not that much. And the costumes are black and white, and the only other colour you find is red. And red represents socialism and the Labour Party and Keir Hardie. And it sort of bleeds into the show as an idea. And you can make the stage black and white, and you can make it be really bright and vibrant. But those are the only three colours we use.
It's very efficient and effective.
And cheap.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really wonderful.
It's cheaper than trying to make every single number have a new look and a new feel, and it's very simple. I like simple.
It's lovely. Can you tell us a little bit about how in some of the trailers that we saw, we see different sort of movement styles. How does that sit with you? Do you see a certain movement style as being your home base, and then some other ones being different territories you explore? Or?
Really, I mean, I stopped dancing when I was 12, and then I started again when I was 17. So I had a massive gap in my dance education. And I never thought I could be a dancer. I never really wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a choreographer. But when I did start dancing again when I was 17, I was so influenced by MTV that I just wanted to learn what Janet Jackson was doing. Like, that was my main aim. So I did learn and study hip-hop foundation skills, social grooves, house dance, all that style. And then I also knew tap and modern and a bit of ballet and stuff, and musical theatre, whatever you want to call that, bit jazz. But when we've made the shows that we're making now, I think on every show I've worked with a different associate choreographer or a different assistant choreographer, and I really collaborate a lot. So I would never say like everything you see is my work. It's not, and it's never billed as such. There are always associates and assistants who contribute ideas and work into it. So Message in a Bottle, I worked with Lucas McFarlane, who's an amazing Canadian choreographer, and he's a contemporary dancer. So all their styles feed in as well. And I try and know my limitations. I know what steps I do well. I know where I'm flailing, and I don't know what I'm doing. So I kind of collaborate with people in the areas where I'm weak, and I lead on the areas where I know that I can do it. I love all dance. I mean, my favourite dance is Lindy Hop, which is how I broke my foot, actually. But I love Lindy Hop. I'm obsessed with swing dance and Lindy Hop, and we've done it a little bit in some of our shows. But I think dance is dance.
Yeah.
And it's, we so often put it into pigeonholes. But I think if you can dance, you can learn any style of dance. You can learn from each other. You can share and develop.
I guess also as a creator, you sort of just draw from whatever material you can draw from. And
it's led by the story. Like, what's the story telling you to do? What's the music telling you to do? Why would you dance in this style to tell that story beat? No.
And, speaking of associate choreographers, I know that recently there's a new development in your company as well, that you've recruited a new associate director.
Yeah, I'm artistic director of ZooNation, the Kate Brits company, which sounds really, really grand. I'm not really. I'm Kate, and I started a company with some friends 21 years ago. We used to run it out of my shed in the back garden, and we didn't have any money, and no one got paid for anything. And 21 years later, I've got a title, and now we've, appointed an associate artistic director who's Rhymes Lecomte, who's been with the company since 2005. So I think 3 years into the company she joined. Part of that's to do with the fact that I'm turning 50 next year. I'm a mum. I live in Brighton. I don't live in London anymore. I'm tired. I'm less enthusiastic. I can't cope as much as I used to be able to. I don't have the drive and ambition of the 30-year-old Kate. I'm much happier sat on the sofa with a cup of tea watching The Good Wife and, just taking it easy. So there's a lot of truth behind that. And Rhymes is younger than me and just blossoming in her career. She's amazing. And she's got all these ideas and all these stories she wants to tell. And so we've now appointed her as an associate artistic director of the company and are going to start making her stories, which is the way it should be, because we've got to pass the baton on to the next generation.
That's lovely. And you know, to be able to pass it on to someone that you've worked with for so long, it's quite a special moment, isn't it?
Yeah, she's brilliant as well. Like, wait till I can't say what the first show is that she's making or where she's making it, but she is doing it and it's brilliant and it's such a good idea. So.
Oh, go on, tell us. So, do you mind if I ask you a little bit about motherhood and how that plays into your career?
That's my favorite.
Is that all right? So I know you have a daughter, right? Yes. And how I guess there's something about sometimes people in the performing arts sector or in the dance sector. I've spoken to dancers that feel like sometimes they're a little bit worried about motherhood being sort of in the way of their career, which I don't believe at all. But you know, it's been so inspiring, you know, seeing some of my colleagues in the past how they managed to do so well with their career alongside motherhood. So how did you manage it?
Well, there's no easy answer for anyone, I think. We've certainly never had any childcare in terms of a nanny or anything like that. We always decided that we wanted to try and make it work with our own family. So between me and my husband and his mother before she passed away, and my mum and some of my best friends, when I am working, we make it work. Takes a village, right, to raise a child, and that's the way we've tried to do it, is to keep it within family and friends. I've also sort of laid down the law a lot when I get employed by other people. I'll only work a 5-day week. I won't do that 6th day, which musical theatre and dance nearly always do when you have to work Saturdays. When I first had Ella, I was offered Everybody's Talking About Jamie. And I said to the director, thank you so much, sounds great, but, you know, I've got a baby, and it's just not feasible, and you're rehearsing in Sheffield and can't do it. And he came back to me and he said, what if we rehearsed in London for 2 weeks? What if you only had to do 3 days a week? And he kept going until we reached an agreement that I could do with a small baby. And we, instead of, normally when you do musical theatre particularly, it's 6 days a week, it's 10 till 6, non-negotiable. And he moved rehearsals from Sheffield to London for 2 weeks, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, which I'd managed to do for 2 weeks with help. And then from then on, he said, just do 3 days a week, come to Sheffield, and I'd go up and down, which is quite easy from London, and managed to do it. And he did that all the way through, and it transferred to the West End, did the same thing. He never made me go full time. And he's amazing, and not many people do that. And he was like, I value you, I want you, you're a mum, how do we make it work? Everyone should be like him. He's brilliant.
And you know, I think it's something that, you know, people in the sector, as people that works in the sector, that we should fight for as well. Yeah. To open up that discussion, to have that sort of conversation around best working conditions for everyone, not just have a set of conditions that we need to sort of fit ourselves into.
I think everyone should do a 4-day working. That's why I really do. In every profession, if there was a way everyone could go to a 4-day working week.
Yeah.
And actually, in the West End, you have to do 8 shows a week, and so you only ever get 1 day off. And I think that's wrong. I think it should be absolutely, everyone deserves a 2-day weekend. For Sylvia, I refused to work Saturdays, and I said, if I'm not working Saturdays, no one else should. So everyone got a 2-day weekend all through rehearsal. Unfortunately, now they're in the real thick of 8 shows a week, cover rehearsals. They're in all the time. They're exhausted. It shouldn't have to be like that. It's really tough on performers. Not so much on me, because when the show's open, I don't have to be there and I can go back to my life. But when you're in one, and there's a woman in our cast, her baby's just turned 1. And she's done all this rehearsal period with a tiny baby at home and not getting much sleep. I don't know how she's done it. And there's 2 other parents in the cast as well. But I've always said, bringing kids to work, I bring Ella to work as much as I can. Try and have an open door policy that if you've got childcare problems, just bring them in. We'll make it work. There's enough of us, you know, we can look after them. They can be in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, children and babies actually bring a different atmosphere to the rehearsal environment, which sometimes adds to the piece. And also that sort of caring environment, I think, just gives everyone a little bit more of a breathing space to be themselves as well. So, Kate, can you tell us a little bit about any sort of next projects, further plans, any hints?
I plan on watching a lot of daytime TV at the moment. No, I don't know actually. Sylvia's been the hardest thing I've ever tried to make. And I didn't line anything up for after Sylvia. I'm attached to 2 musicals, but I don't know when or if they will happen. So I'll see. Message in a Bottle goes into rehearsal again in April. And then it's touring the world. It's going to Australia and America and Canada and all across Europe and back in the UK as well, which is great. And I think it's touring for 1.5 years. And that's amazing for ZooNation. We've never had anything like that before, ever. And to take our work to America, that's insane. So that's good. Everybody's talking about Jamie. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Stuff happening with that as well. And I don't think I'm allowed to say it, but there is stuff happening with that.
Things happening.
Yeah.
Great.
And I don't know. So our show, The Mad Hatter's Tea Party, we sold to CBS in America.
Oh.
And they're developing it potentially as a project. So I have a bit of work that I do on that, just consulting on it. But we've basically sold the concept to them. We're also maybe turning it into a show for a cruise liner, for it to become a nightclub on the show, on the cruise. So little things like that we're sort of looking at, but yeah.
It's very busy. You're not going to get time for that cup of tea that you.
Yeah.
Shall we open the floor to some questions from the audience? That's all right.
I think find your own path, because sometimes the conventional, traditional path is too competitive. I started by teaching dance to anyone who would have me. Primary schools around here, senior schools around here. I didn't charge much, and I'd go and teach them as part. This is in the early 90s, so I'd go and do it as like a sports option. Then in one school, they did a school show, and I filmed it and had it on VHS tape. And when I went to university, I took that VHS to the student union and said, I want to choreograph your musical theatre society. And she looked at the tape and on her VHS machine and decided it was all right, and gave me a job as a choreographer for the Student Musical Theatre Society. And she's now the chairman of the board of ZooNation, that same lady, and we're a good friend and became my flatmate. But that was a very unconventional route. And then because I was at Edinburgh, I did the Edinburgh Fringe. And Fringe stuff is a risk, but it gets reviewed, and you can build up reviews through doing it, and you meet other like-minded people who are taking the path less travelled and making their own work. And then 5 years later from doing that, I got offered a job to choreograph something that went to the West End from making a Fringe show. So that wasn't the path most travelled. Path most travelled, go to London Studio Centre, go to Italia Conti. That's the path most travelled. So I don't know. I think don't ever let someone tell you can't do something. I've had so many people in my life say, you're not a good enough dancer, all sorts of stuff. But you just got to find your own path. So there's always a way. And dance can be in your life in so many different ways and can be fulfilling in so many different ways. Best show I've ever made, hands down, was with a cast of under 16-year-olds. Move on down the road at the South Bank Centre. And it was the best work experience of my life. And so working with young people, and you're still making dance. There's all sorts of things you can do. So path less travelled, I'd say. I don't know about motivation, because sometimes I did give up, if I'm honest. Then I get really cross when some people say no. And people said no a lot, and they're still saying no to me. They're saying, what I'm getting most at the moment is you're a choreographer, don't try and be a writer. Stick to your lane, know what you're good at, just be a choreographer. And that makes me really cross, because I'm like, well, surely we should all be able to try anything. doesn't mean we'll be good at it. But if you don't try, how do you know? And if you're not prepared to fail, failing really hurts. You can't grow, you can't learn. And the only other thing I'd say about Sylvia is I like living in a different reality. I wasn't very good in school. I was always daydreaming. I was always looking out the window, and I was existing in my own music video, or but I was making something up. And the thing with writing Sylvia was that post breaking my foot, post being a mother, it was something I could do at a laptop, and I could jump into this other world in my mind at any point and have pure escapism, whether it was a train journey or just sitting in a coffee shop. And I like that escapism of trying to create a world that isn't this world. So that's often my motivation. So when we started 21 years ago, it was a collection. I used to dance on shows like Top of the Pops and CDUK, and I met a lot of dancers through doing that. And what I thought at the time was, I'm more interested in the backing dancers than I am in the singer, particularly when it's like a bad pop act. And but behind the bad pop act are some really brilliant dancers who are killing it. So initially, to find dancers, they were my peers. They were people I was working with. I also taught at London Studio Centre, Italia Conti, Arts Educational, Mount View. And I did the rounds. And through doing that, I met students, a lot of students. And so when I was forming the company, it was a mixture of people I'd danced with, people I'd taught in different colleges, and people that I might have choreographed when I used to choreograph sort of boy bands and girl bands. So I invited them, but then I wasn't paying anyone. We were just friends. I got free rehearsal space from one of the colleges that I was teaching at. So it was just a collective of people. But then as time's gone on, we do audition, yes. But the best places I've found people is like judging a dance competition in Stoke-on-Trent once. I found the most amazing woman called Natasha Gooden. She was 15 years old, and she was in a crew, and she was front and centre. And I just said to her, gave her my card and said, get in touch. And she did, and she's been in the company ever since she was 15. So sometimes it's that when I'm out and about and I see people. But there's always a way to audition. Sylvia is a bit of a different example because it's musical theatre. But for something like Message in a Bottle, we've just done open auditions for Message in a Bottle. We had some ridiculous number, it was 800 or something people that sent in videos that we went through for, I think, about 2 jobs. And they came from all over Europe. And then we did some auditions at the English National Ballet in London. And from that I've selected 2 people to join the company because the rest of the company was already there. There's always a way to audition. The best thing I'd say, though, if you want to get into a hip hop company, anyone's hip hop company, look where they teach class. Someone like Kenrick Sandy, Boy Blue, he still teaches everywhere. So you can go to his class and he can get to know you and see what you do. But I used to teach at Pineapple for like 8 years, stopped a long time ago. I stopped in 2008. But from teaching there, people would come to my class. And if they were good, I'd notice them, and then I'd invite them along to a ZooNation rehearsal. And they'd join in and see how they got on. But it's still a thing, go to base in London, or I'm a bit out of touch, but there's still a lot. Isn't there, Jasmine? There's places singing, yeah, everything. There's lots of choreographers that still teach, and I think it's the best thing to do is get to their class. Even someone like Ashley Wallen, do you know who that is? So Ashley Wallen is, he choreographed movies like The Greatest Showman, Jingle Jangle, there's Amazon Cinderella that was on recently. He's an Australian choreographer. He's choreographed Kylie Minogue, and he does everything. He's very, very busy, and he's wonderful. But he's still occasionally, he'll do a masterclass, and you can get in there. So I would try and find out where they're teaching, then you can get in front of them. Yeah, that's tricky, isn't it? The University of East London does a it's a street or hip hop course, I think it is.
I think it
And I
was
believe
urban
Sanders
dance.
Wells are about to open a hip hop academy. A lot of the people that are, to sort of answer both questions, actually, a lot of the people that have ended up working for us have joined our ZooNation Academy and our youth company. And they've come literally on a Saturday. They will come to London from Liverpool, Stoke-on-Trent, Manchester, Brighton, Southampton. And they come up, they get the train. Some of them leave at 4:30 in the morning and they come down and they do from I think it's 10 till 6. And they do training with the youth company and then with the academy all in one day on a Saturday. But loads of them have ended up being employed now in the professional company. In some colleges, I teach in a lot of, I used to teach in a lot of colleges where there are a lot of male students as well. I think it depends on the college. There always will be more girls. I think it's 90% of participants in dance in the UK are female. Is that right?
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I don't know the numbers, obviously.
Participants in dance are female. Over 80% of people in leadership roles in dance are male. Yeah, that's the battle, isn't it? And, you know, I wrote letters for years to people that went unanswered and sent VHS tapes for years to people that no one watched. I've always tried to do it through festivals. I think festivals are the best way to do it. So, like I said, Edinburgh, so I won't repeat that one, but also in London, the Place does Resolution Festival. And ZooNation started in 2002. And I think in 2004, I did the application form to perform at Resolution. And again, that gets reviewed. People, you know, you just get a little review or a little something, and you meet people through doing it. And it really, really helped launch us. And through doing Resolution, I met people at the Place. They told me about this 2-week course they were doing that was going to help people develop an idea. I applied. It was called Hot House. And it was run by B-Boy Storm, German B-Boy, amazing man. And he came over, three companies got selected. They helped develop an idea for 2 weeks, and that idea became Into the Hoods. But I should also mention that before Into the Hoods got made and went to the West End, I gave up choreography altogether, and I got a job as a runner at the BBC. And I stopped, and I had done a bit of Top of the Pops and all of that stuff. But I ended up getting cups of tea for dancers who had previously worked for me. And I was getting them their lunch because I thought, I'm not going to make it as a choreographer. This industry is really, really challenging. I need a proper job. I need to use my degree because I had an academic degree from Edinburgh. And I was a runner for 6 months at the BBC. I was a terrible runner. I was really bad at it. And whilst I was there, I was so miserable it made me determined to pursue choreography, and I finished writing the idea for Into the Hoods whilst I was a runner. And I should have been running, and I wasn't. So yeah, that's why I say path less traveled. There's nothing about my journey that is normal. But the one thing I would say, and I think it's really important that I'm honest about this, is I had support from my family financially. So I come from privilege. And when people don't acknowledge their privilege, I don't think it's very helpful. Because on top of my dreams, I also had the backing of knowing that my family supported my dreams. And if I ran out of money, they would help me. And that is such a rare thing. And it's a really fortunate thing. So I have a very, very close friend and associate who's incredibly successful, probably more successful than me, and had none of that. And he did it all on his own. And although I did it on my own, I had that support. And I don't want it to sound like I'm just this magical person who became this incredible choreographer completely on my own, because that's not the truth. Yeah, I think so. I think having a daughter as well, I've got so much more involved in politics and in being a feminist than I ever thought I would be. I didn't leave school at 18 and run out and exercise my right to vote. And that's why I've made this show. I didn't care about the vote when I was 18. I cared about whether I could drive a car and, you know, all that stuff. I wasn't really concerned about my community. And as I've grown older, I care so much about my community and about the future for my daughter. It's made me much more political. But with that comes a lot of problems as well. Not everyone likes what I'm saying politically in Sylvia. It's very socialist. It's about not leaving people behind. It's about trying to make sure that everyone has opportunity. When you're playing to a lot of Tories in the audience, that doesn't always go down particularly well. But, you know, it is a show for everyone, and it's a funny show as well. But yeah, I do choose, like the story of Message in a Bottle is all about the global refugee crisis. That's why I made it and what it's inspired by. I would never have known that at 18 years old, I just wanted to be Janet Jackson. I didn't care about the world. I just wanted, you know, but I think that must come with age and motherhood and social responsibility and thinking about the world that we're going to leave for our children and their children. I've got a horrible feeling the next thing I might write might be about the environment, but I don't, but it's something like that, because I don't want it to just be empty. I've always said I don't like empty steps. I want them to be about something.